Welcome to the Ghostly Gallery podcast, a place where we explore the world of horror in film, literature, and popular culture. Well, hello, everyone. Welcome. My name is Bruce Markison, and as always, I'm joined by producer and co-host Tracy Asteria. Tracy, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm good, Bruce. How are you tonight?
Good. I wanted to ask you about your Halloween. You were telling me that you had to work the entire day. Is that true?
I did. I worked right into the evening, but it was a cold, dark night. And unfortunately, there wasn't many kids around my neighborhood this year. So that was disappointing. I'm hopeful next year will be better. How about you?
Well, I worked as well, at least until 5 o'clock. At the Hall of Fame, they encourage all of the employees to dress up. So, of course, I dressed up as Frankenstein. What else am I going to be, right? I didn't win the costume party contest. Somebody else who was dressed like Wednesday Addams won, which was fine. It was just the fun of being Frankenstein, scaring. I scared my boss when she first walked in the morning. She didn't know I was going to be dressed like that, so that was kind of fun. Then at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, we actually opened the doors at the Hall of Fame to trick-or-treaters. We're open throughout the day before then, but then we encouraged trick-or-treaters, the kids and their parents, to come in. And we must have had a few hundred kids that came through from 3 to 5 o'clock. And then at 5 o'clock, Cooperstown does a parade down Main Street. And we did that, which was a lot. I walked in the parade as Frankenstein. So that was kind of fun. And then after all of that, I was able to go home. I watched some horror films. One of the movies I watched was the 1974 edition of Dracula with Jack Palance as the Count. And I knew it was a good film, but I'd forgotten how good a film it was. It was nice to watch it. I watched it on that Movies TV network that Jeff Thompson, one of our earlier guests, had suggested.
Right.
And they aired a lot of great old horror films throughout the month of October. And then they had a marathon on Halloween, day and night, and I was enjoying some of that. But the 74 edition of Dracula, Dan Curtis directed that, was really, really good. And Jack Palance was a lot of fun to watch in that role. So all in all, very busy, very good Halloween. Can't complain.
Wonderful.
Well, from Halloween to Hollywood. Today, our guest is a friend of ours, Michael Dante. Michael is an award-winning actor, also an award-winning author, and he's a celebrity radio talk show host. He has compiled more than 60 credits in TV and film, including a key role in the terrific 1971 horror film Willard. And at one time, Michael was a professional baseball player. He played 3 seasons in the minor leagues before eventually turning to professional acting. Michael was born in Stamford, Connecticut, not that far from where we are in upstate New York. And he is so revered in Stamford, there is a street named in his honor. So Michael's accomplishments are many. They are well varied as well. We're very happy to have him on the program. Michael, welcome to the Ghostly Gallery podcast. How are you doing?
Oh, thank you, Bruce and Tracy. It's a pleasure. And let me correct you right away. 30 films and 150 television shows.
Okay.
I think you mentioned there was 60. And there's a lot more. 60 years of work, I think maybe might be the proper introduction there. It's been a wonderful ride and enjoyable, a lot of hard work, ups and downs, and I'm looking forward to talking about a couple of what we call them. When I was growing up, we called them not horror films, we called them scary movies.
Yes,
scary movies.
Yeah.
We had to see, for example, one of our favorites, or I should say 2 of our favorites, was Frankenstein and Werewolf. Frankenstein with Boris Karloff, one of them, Bela Lugosi, wonderful. And, of course, Lon Chaney, the werewolf, and we went in and, we'd have nightmares. I got home because the theater, the weekends at the Strand and the Plaza Palace Theater in our hometown, they
Yeah.
were the only two theaters we had. And of course, we couldn't afford to go to pay for the movies and our candies and our little goodies. And so in those days, the exit doors were on the sides of the theater. So when the movie was finished, or serial, or the news, the doors would open and people would exit the side doors. They wouldn't go out the front door where they came in. So we would sneak underneath that light and, and sit there, not only for one show, we'd sit there for two shows. We'd go in the afternoon and we'd stay there until 5 or 6 o'clock at night, get home just in time for dinner. But we were movie buffs and serial buffs, and of course westerns and scary movies were our favorites. And the actors that did Boris Karloff and Bela Lugosi and Frankenstein and Lon Chaney, they were just excellent. They were classic performances. And to this day, I enjoy when I see a rerun on television. I kind of go back and think about the wonderful memories of growing up with these wonderful actors in these scary movies.
So, Michael, when you snuck into the theater, did you ever get caught?
No, we never did. So, we were pretty good at it. No, it was, we'd go in it. And I remember those days there was a corner store, and I remember called Schulte's. It was a candy store right on the corner of Main Street. So before we went into the theater, we would always have enough money for a Baby Ruth, Baby Ruth candy, and an almond joy, one of those or two, and that was our lunch for the day. And we'd skip. We didn't go in there with a lunch, but we had our snack, and then it was a Baby Ruth or almond joy. So we were delighted. That, we did in those days. We didn't need very much to be happy, to be enjoying the movies and doing little things that made us all happy because we were all loved. We had wonderful, and we had a great attitude in loving mom, dad, family, God, and country. We were taught in our home to respect the police officers, and we all wanted to be policemen. We all wanted to be firemen, and we respected the law, and we families were very friendly on our blocks. The doors were open, windows were open, music was playing throughout the neighborhood. It was life in those days, and I kind of miss it. We don't have that trust today. You have too many crimes and too many angry and bitter people that have a different idea about life.
Michael, I'm glad you corrected me on the number of film credits. We're going to have to contact IMDb because I was relying on them for the information. They're the one that listed you with 60 TV and film credits, but as you pointed out, more than 30 film credits, well over 100 television credits. We're going to have to add a few to the IMDb page if that's possible to do, because they're underselling you, and we don't want to see that happen. Michael, I want to talk first before we get into film. I want to talk about your early days as a ball player. A lot of people don't realize you were a top flight shortstop in high school. You were signed by the Milwaukee Braves, the old Milwaukee Braves, now, of course, the Atlanta Braves. And you were so good, you received a bonus of $6,000. You were pretty highly touted, correct?
Yes, well, it was a Boston Braves at that time, Bruce. It was the last year they were in Boston. That was 1949. I had graduated out of high school, and the Stamford Advocate, our local newspaper, sponsor was our sponsor, and there was a league, a New England newspaper league. So therefore, our Stanford Advocate automatically sponsored us, and we had a good ball club, and we were very fortunate to win our division, and then be invited to Boston to play in the playoffs, in which we won, and I was uh, the most valuable player uh, in the tournament then. And the reward was a $6,000 bonus. The Braves thought enough of me to give me the maximum. In those days, 6,000, you got a penny over $6,000, you had to stay 2 years in the big leagues. Well, they were about to do that with an 18-year-old kid. So they gave me the maximum, $6,000. And the first thing I did was buy our family a four-door Buick, white wall tires, radio, and heater. I had three sisters, a brother, mom and dad, so there was seven of us. And dad was in the produce business, so the only means of transportation was the truck. And of course, that wasn't very pleasant where my sister had to climb out the truck to have dad transport us to wherever we were going socially. So, and dad worked 7 days a week, by the way, in the produce business. It was a very tough business to be in. And he always said to me, I don't want you anywhere near this business. Please, he said, don't follow my footsteps. Well, anyway, the automobile served us so well. Dad and mom, of course, were so thrilled. And now we were able to have transportation. It's this beautiful four-door Buick. And it was something very special. Now, in today's market, I would say um, between it would be between $3 and $4 million a bonus.
Oh my
Because
gosh.
you have the draft day and so forth.
Mhm.
Top draft players get quite a huge bonus. So that would have been. I always said to mom, I said, Mom, you brought me into the world too early. You should have waited a while. Maybe if I got a bonus, it would be 2 or 3, 4 million. But well, in those days, $6,000 went a long way.
Sure.
We were one happy family and took a lot of pressure off dad and his work and his income, and to support seven people in the household every day, 7 days a week. So it was a very special time in our lives.
Yeah. Michael, you played 3 seasons in the minor leagues. Then your career came to an end. Did you get hurt? What happened to end your career after the 3 years?
Yeah, I was what we call, Bruce, in professional terms, damaged goods. And it really sidetracked my development. I got hurt in my second year, injured on my shoulder, and they knew nothing. I mean, zero about sports medicine or kinesiology in those days. And unfortunately, I was a victim because as a matter of fact, they gave me heat treatments when they should be giving me cold treatments. Today it would be the opposite, cold treatments until they were able to treat you differently.
Mhm.
In those days, they were giving me heat treatment, which was making it worse.
Mm.
And so I went hither and yon, and I was so brokenhearted. I didn't know where my life was going to go, because I didn't know if that arm was ever going to come around, or I was finished. But
Mhm.
anyway, they had sent me to Dr. George E. Bennett. He was the uh, doctor that operated on Ted Williams when he put screws, metal screws, in Ted Williams's shoulder. So they were beginning to develop sports medicine. And George E. Bennett was the number one orthopedic doctor in the world at that time. And he was the head orthopedic surgeon at Johns Hopkins in Baltimore. So he sent me, I had operated on my shoulder. And he said to me, he said, son, this is what I want you to do. Follow my instructions. I know you want, with all your heart, you want to play baseball. I want your arm to heal in warm weather. I want you to go somewhere where it's warm. He knew about our weather in Stamford, Connecticut was always the worst. It either rain or cold. We didn't like athletes playing baseball. Didn't like the weather we had on in Stamford, Connecticut. We'd always get rained out or have a problem with cold weather and so forth. But he said, "Look, I want you to go south and allow your arm to heal. And after 2 months of healing, I want you to start a throwing program." So he wrote out exactly what I wanted to do. So I went to mom and dad and said, "Mom and dad, can I have some money? I wanted to enter the University of Miami of Florida as a drama major, which was my second love, acting." And I thought, well, gee, I'm chasing two American dreams for myself. And my dad always said, later on, he had said to me, he said, son, you picked the two toughest professions in the whole world to be successful, to be a star in films, television, or baseball. And he said that I'm proud of you and support you and love whatever you want to do. And mom and dad was always supportive. When I entered the University of Miami as a drama major there, and I lived off campus at the time. The University of Miami, Florida, was not like it is today. It was a lot different. And living off campus is a buddy of mine, Mickey McDermott, the left-hander that pitched for the Red Sox, the Yankees, Washington, and the Cardinals. And the Washington Senators, on a condition basis, invited me to spring training. This was now we're up to 1955. That they invited me to spring training to Orlando, Florida, and Mickey was very instrumental in encouraging me and coaxed me along and don't rush it into wanting to try and throw too early and so forth. Well, Mickey lived there. He lived in Coral Gables, so he was at I was at his house. He was married at the time. I had two daughters, and the phone rang, and Mickey picked up the phone and said, "Hey, hello, yeah, hey, TD, how are you?" It was Tommy Dorsey.
Oh my goodness!
And he said, on the end of the phone, Tommy Dorsey said, "Mickey, we got a night off." His manager, Tino Barzi, and he loved baseball. God, he loved baseball as much as he loved his trombone, his instrument.
Michael, for some of our younger listeners, explain who Tommy Dorsey was.
No, Tommy Dorsey was the number one band leader in the world at the time. This was 1954, just before spring training in 55. 1954 fall semester, I registered at the university that fall semester. So this was 54, before the holidays. And he was doing, Tom did the Nestle show and the All American show for, the great Jackie Gleason.
Oh my goodness.
They were the best of friends. And those two shows were two of the most popular comedy shows, in all the world. This was just, they were sensational. And number one on the ratings and so forth. So Tommy automatically was a superstar in his own right. And of course, a big band leader invited to do one-nighters at this point of his tour, up and down the east and west coast of Florida. And he said, calling Mick, he said, Mick, we got a night off tonight. We want to take you to dinner. Tino and I, we want to talk baseball and go over the hitters in baseball terminology. Yeah. So he said, we'll go over to each of the ball club and see if you got any young ball players. He said, yeah, we got a young ball player right here. He's a hell of a ball player. He said, he can make our ball club. And he said, do you mind if he comes along? And Tommy said, sure, absolutely. So we went to dinner, had a great time, and we got along royally and so forth. But Tommy's last words were, look, I'm going to be in February. I'll be coming back again, doing one-nighters again, and we'll get together again. So February, of course, was just before I was going to spring training with the Washington Senators in March 1st. So, it was perfect. We would be available, and Mickey and so forth. Well, true to his word, cut to the chase, February, I was walking out of my apartment, and I had all the props in my crawl right here, and then I had one of the Spanish buildings where the lock was on top, and I was just about to lock the door. The door was ajar, maybe 2 inches. I mean, if that door was closed, I wouldn't be here now talking with you. The phone rang in the room, and I said, "Oh dear, here's the props." And I had to get to rehearsal. It was a dress rehearsal that I had to attend. I couldn't get out of. And I said, "Well, look, here I have 3 sisters, a brother, mom and dad, 15 aunts and uncles. If I don't answer that phone and something goes wrong with any one of them, I'll never forgive myself." So I threw the door open, threw the props on the couch, and on the other end was, "Hey, pal." It was Tommy Dorsey. Tommy. He was doing an imitation of Jackie Gleason. So I knew I was in when he addressed me that way, which means I'm a part of the group when he accepted me. So he was a tough leader, a great leader, but a tough leader, totally professional. I mean, absolutely nothing, settled for nothing less than perfection in his band and anything he was associated with. So he said, "I've been trying to get you all day. I had to call the office to get you to get your number and so forth. I can't get a hold of Mickey. I don't know where he is. I kept calling there at his house and so forth." And he said, he meant, "Thank you." He said, "Thank God I was able to get the all administration office, and they gave me your number and so forth." And anyway, well, we want to go to dinner tonight and do what we did the last time. In the meantime, see if you can get a hold of Mickey. We'll try to get a hold of Mickey. Well, I said, "Gee, Tommy, I can't. I got props I got to do. I'm dress rehearsal. I can't. But I could meet you for coffee afterwards, after dinner." And he said, No. He said, "Leave a pass for the 2 of us. We'll meet you backstage. Where are you going to be?" I said, "I'll be at the Ring Theater at Miami, which is the name of our theater, the Ring Theater." True to his word, backstage. He met after the rehearsal. There he was, and neither one of us could get a hold of Mickey. So we went to dinner and so forth, and we had a wonderful, wonderful conversation. He said, "Michael, I'm only going to tell you this once. I helped quite a few people in my lifetime, and it was a I'd love being in a position to help talented people." He said, "When you're on stage," he said, "you're a handsome guy, you're tall, you're athletic." He said, "You move so well." He said, "You got all the attributes to be a movie star."
Mm.
And he said, "I want to tell you this once. I had one particular talent. He became a giant, and he did okay. And I really was instrumental in launching his career. And his name was Frank Sinatra."
Oh my gosh.
Whoa, Tom, you really think I have the attributes of becoming a movie star? And uh, he said, "Absolutely." He said, "All you have to do is learn all the machinations, about the camera movement and so forth. That comes later." He said, "I've spent several years on the contract at MGM, and we're going out to do the home show at the Pan Pacific Auditorium in 2 weeks in April. So that's right after spring training, just for April 1st. It was right at the beginning of the first and the ending of the spring training. Could have been better timing." And he said, "Here's my itinerary. We'll be in touch. I'll call you from time to time to get a progress report how your arm is coming around." Well, again, cut to the chase. My arm was not quite ready, but it was towards the end of March, and I had to make a decision. And he was sending me down to Chattanooga, the AA club and the station. And the trainer there, my arm started. He did a good job in stretching me. That's all I really needed. All the things that they couldn't do, didn't do, what I really needed was stretching. Anyway, so my arm was really in pretty good shape. But I only have 2 weeks of my life, and I'm only 20, 21 years old at that time. And I thought, well, let me take a 2 weeks leave of absence, see what happens. I can always go back to baseball. Still a youngster, so forth. So I joined Tommy, joined them in Las Vegas, had a great time in the Vegas, and then rode with him in his automobile, just the two of us, to Los Angeles. We had an awful lot to talk about. Well, during that stay, after the 2 weeks there at the Pan Pacific Auditorium, Tommy introduced me to Jack Cummings, producer of several motion pictures at MGM. I tested out at MGM. They signed me to a contract. I never went back to baseball. 30 films, 150 television shows later, on the contracts at three majors, one of the few actors, or if any other actors, male actors, are on the contract, three major studios, MGM, Warner Brothers, 20th Century Fox. I had a 5-fixture deal at 20th Century Fox. Had my own radio show for 12 years, and I've written 6 books. I just finished my 6th book.
Oh,
And ready to go on Team Dante, talkradioshows.com on the internet, and also it's on Spotify. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
So we have an awful lot that I've accomplished, and still so much more there to look forward in the future. So that I'm sorry to be long-winded, but it is a long story, and it really, I think I say it. There's no question it was divine guidance that I met Tommy Dorsey
Yeah.
through my buddy Mickey McDermott. So I can't be more grateful for the good Lord and the timing that existed to bring me here to this day to talk with you, Tracy, and Bruce. This is really brings back a lot of beautiful memories.
Oh my gosh. And we love to hear them. And you know what? Everything happens for a reason in everybody's life. That's an amazing story.
Yes, I've been blessed to meet so many. I mean, if you look at the list of my radio show, which was over 200 celebrities that I introduced, about 45 of them from the Hall of Fame of NFL, Major League Baseball, boxing, golf, tennis. I mean, it's incredible. So, and and in my lifetime, I'm meeting all the big stars: Clark Gable and Lana Turner and Grace Kelly. And, I mean, it just goes on and on. And so it was a boyhood dream, a fantasy that became a reality. And so chase the American dream. America has all of that, to offer all of our young people if they work hard enough and dream and believe and just have all the confidence in the world, because every human being is born with some talent, something you have, whatever that is. Just chase it, chase the American dream. America has that to offer to all our young people. All they have to do is take advantage of it, and then just believe in divine guidance, and things will happen.
Amazing. One or two meetings with Tommy Dorsey changes a life and certainly changes it for the better. When I first met you, Michael, it was at the Baseball Hall of Fame. I think it was around 2016. You and your wife, Mary Jane, came to the Cooperstown area. You took a tour of the Hall of Fame. I forget who asked me to take you folks around, but I was glad to do it. It was a Saturday afternoon and took you through the library and through some of the other behind the scenes areas of the Baseball Hall of Fame. And we got to talking. Not only do we have an interest in baseball, but also a mutual interest in film. Talked a little bit about my interest in horror movies. One of the things that you told me about that day, Michael, was you had a chance to be the star of a television show, 1950s, The Untouchables. And you thought about it, but as I recall, you ended up going in a different direction because you had multi-film offer from a studio. You decided to go in that direction. And long term, it ended up working out okay. But in the short term, you lost out on The Untouchables. Tell us a little bit about that story.
Well, it was very interesting. And not really. It was my choice. What happened, there was a show called Desilu Playhouse. And I co-starred with Roy Calhoun and Janice Rule in a episode called The Killer Instinct, where I played a fighter. I played a Mexican fighter in it. I spoke Spanish in it and so forth. And Rory and I did our own. We didn't have any sparring partners. We did our own fighting and boxing and so forth, training and so forth. Well, in less than 24 hours, that was on a Sunday night. The show was very, very popular, had great ratings. Desilu Playhouse. It was owned by Desi and Desi Arnaz and Lucille Ball.
Mm-hmm.
And so I really did a great job. And the next morning, I mean, I'm talking less than 24 hours, I met with Quinn Martin, the executive producer, creator of The Untouchables. He wanted me to do 13 shows and Stack would do 30. I wouldn't play Stack's flunky. I would star in 13 and he would star in, we would rotate. Mm-hmm. One week he would be on, the following week I'd be on. And we each star in 13 shows. They had a contract with 26 committed shows to the network. And at the same time, now this was at 10:30, and at 11:30, I had a meeting with Sidney Bohm. Sidney Bohm was the producer and writer of Seven Thieves, a caper, a film starring Eddie G. Robinson, Rod Steiger, Eli Wallach, Joan Collins, Barry Kroger, and Alex Corby. I remember all of their names, and yours truly. I play the lover boy safecracker. Well, I wanted to do films. See, my choice was to do films because I loved the time. And in those days, television, it was everything was shoot it yesterday, get it done yesterday. Everything was scheduled right to the minute, and so forth. Because they're working on budgets and so forth that were not the largest budgets in the world. But when you're doing a film, you have time to rehearse. And that was trained to rehearse, to relax, take your time, and get inside and outside of the character and really begin after you've memorized your dialogue, then bring in your creative contributions to that character and so forth, and then working with the director and working together and improving everything that was written. So when I was with Quinn, I said, Quinn, and each time I said no, the money went up, the price went up. My agent, he asked me, Quinn said, do you mind leaving the room for a minute or two? He talked to my agent. My agent said, Michael, they want to give you more money, and so forth, and so forth, and more perks. And then a second time, I mean, I wasn't thinking about money. I knew that it would work, and money's a result. I don't care what you're doing in life. If you create something, you invent something, whatever that is, and your talent has to do with it, you will be rewarded if the work is good. The money will be there. But if you chase the money, then you're looking at a different approach to. I chose, as I learned about myself later, I chose to live a life and my career as an art form. See, as an art form that allowed me to invent and create things other than what was written, and it also led me to other directions like writing. If you asked me at the beginning of my career, or 10 or 15, 20 years of my career, I'd be writing novellas and books and biographies and so forth, and win an award, the Ella Dickey Award in Marshfield, Missouri, in 2018 for my biography. I'd say, you're out of your mind. You told the wrong guy. So with that approach of an art form, I don't care who it is, young people, if you're listening, treat your life and treat your work as an art form. Then you start inventing it and doing things that you never would venture off the top of your head, because the attitude and that direction to create and invent is what made America great. Every generation, every 20 years, our young people, that generation invented and brought us up to where we are today. But I'm a little disappointed today, because today they brought it up to a point where we're going backwards, where you want to eliminate history, where you are trying to change the Constitution and other wonderful, respectful things about our forefathers. And I've had relatives that were killed in World War II,
Mm.
gave their lives, men and women that have gave their lives so that we could be here doing what we're doing and be able to be free
Mhm.
and 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 exercise whatever pursuit of life, what direction we want to go. So, young people, think about that. Think about treating your life and your work as an art form. It's oh God, it served me so well. And for 60 years, I did awfully well with that attitude and that approach
Yeah.
to life.
I think you make an interesting point here, Michael. You know, we look at television and film today, and they're almost on a par. There's a lot of great stuff being done on television, streaming, Netflix, that sort of thing. Back in the 50s and 60s, television was still, in a lot of ways, in its infancy, its early years. Film was considered more prestigious, maybe in some ways more challenging. One of the things that you mentioned, and actually this still holds today, when you're doing a film, you know, you do a take, and then you do another take, and then you do another take, and you have a long shooting schedule. Whereas in television, you got to get things done within a week because you got to move on to the next episode. And obviously, your career choice worked out really well. You did end up doing television later in your career, but you did a lot of film. And I want to talk about, I believe it was the first horror film that you ever did. Correct me if I'm wrong on that, but it was 1971. And you
Well,
received an offer to appear in the film Willard, which is still well known more than 50 years later. Something different from what you had been doing. You had done other types of film and I believe some TV as well. Was it difficult, challenging to move into this genre of horror and play a little bit of a different kind of character?
no, and Mark, I just want to put a tag on my relationship with Quinn Martin and my decision to go with 20th Century Fox, who offered me a 5 picture deal beginning with Seven Thieves, which I never regretted. It was a great caper film, and it plays a great deal on television nowadays, and with a great cast, a wonderful cast. But in answer to Willard, um, versatility was my salvation. I could play the good guy, the bad guy, do accents, um, go from a Native American to a good cowboy, a bad cowboy, to lover boy in Harlow, uh, in lover boy, a safe hacker in Seven Thieves, and so many other diverse characters. Was the what I wanted to do with my career, and I was the happiest camper in the world. I did it my way before the song was written. You know, I guided my career. This is what I wanted to do: be known as a versatile, highly professional actor who can do a lot of things. A leading, it would be in simple terms, a leading man who has the ability to go into character. Okay. Uh, at that time, I had some leading man to go into character. So, because nowadays you have character leads. They're not. They don't have to be handsome. They don't have to be tall and good looking or so forth. And women today don't have to be uh, beautiful like Lana Turner and all the beautiful women and so forth. So anyway, um, Willard was going to be directed by Daniel Mann. He directed the film, and Danny and I were very good friends. We played tennis together, and we were looking for. He was looking for something for me to do, a picture we could do together, and so forth. Well, this came along, and there was nothing in it I could have done, you know, excepting that character Brant. Brent, and it was interesting because the work with Ernest Borgnine and I mean, absolutely Bruce Davidson, Angela Lansbury. Although I didn't have any scenes with her, but I did with Bruce and Ernie, and we had a lot of fun, and it was an education, really an education. I made it
So
a point.
you play this character Brant, and just for those who maybe not don't remember the film, you're kind of the lackey to Ernest Borgnine, who is the head of the company where Willard works. And neither you or Ernest Borgnine's character are particularly nice guys. You bully and sort of manipulate Willard. It's totally the opposite of the way you are in real life. You're such a nice person, such a nice gentleman. But in this film, you're pretty slimy. Borgnine is pretty slimy. It's an interesting, after meeting you and then seeing you in this movie, it's an interesting dichotomy there.
Well, they would say I'm an actor.
Sure.
But I wanted to give you the interesting part about this. And Danny, the director, said, Michael, I don't have a big part in this and so forth. Would you do this for me? And I couldn't turn him down. He's a great director and a wonderful cast. And I said, okay. And he said, the next one I do, it'll be something that you would really want and get your teeth into and so forth. And I really enjoyed it because I learned an awful lot about what these little mice, how to train these mice. I went back to the trainer backstage, and I asked him, how do you get these mice to respond to you and so forth? And he said, Pavlov, the Pavlov theory. Bob, hit a button. Now, when the buzzer rang, he would feed them. He would give them little good. And when he put the mice to work, by the way, he said, I will know in 5 minutes, because he had a gang of them. He had a bunch of them, and they were so affectionate. They were always warm and cuddling with each other. They were really cute.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, they were those huge bats like that. They were small, and he said, watch this. So he had his training table backstage, and he put them on, and he said, watch me, I'll feed them, and then I'll take them away and put them on the side, and then I'll hit that buzzer, and they'll all come to me because they want to eat. They want the food. So now, when they worked in the scene with a whole bunch of them on the table and so forth, and one or two or three of them would meander off and get away from the scene, he'd hit that buzzer, and they'd all come back to the center of where the camera was and wanted to work. So he trained them via the Pavlov theater.
Yeah.
Now, theory, I should say, theory. Now, when Davison had the one of the mouse here, what was his name?
Ben.
Ben. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
He had Ben on his shoulder, and he was licking his ear and so forth. Well, all he did was put peanut butter. He said, "What's this, Michael?" He put the peanut butter in his ear, in the lower part of his ear, and he said, "You go in there and keep nibbling, and it looks like he's kissing him." Well, and it certainly did on camera. It looked like he was being affectionate to and loving Bruce Davidson, who loved the rats, and the rats loved him. So that's how they were able to get the rats to look like they was kissing Bruce Davison.
Lots of actors would have been nauseated by having hundreds of mice or rats on the set, but you make it sound like this was pretty enjoyable.
Yeah, well, that's why I went backstage and learned about it from the trainer, who was
Yeah,
brilliant. He was so talented because all of that had to work well and believable.
yeah,
If not, in the picture it would go down the drain.
yeah.
But everything worked perfectly. He was absolutely brilliant in his craft. He knew exactly what he was doing every moment.
Michael, you mentioned the great cast that you had. Let's talk about working with some of these actors. Ernest Borgnine, who plays the boss to Brant, you're sort of following his lead. What was Ernest Borgnine like to work with?
Oh, it was a joy, but he was a pain in the butt in one sense. He obviously didn't sleep uh, very long at night, or he went to sleep early. If we had a 7 o'clock makeup call, he would get there at 6 o'clock.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Now, if I got a 7 o'clock call, I'll be there for 7 because I wouldn't be there for 6 because I might need another hour's sleep.
Yeah.
But it made us look bad, so that then after a while, they were looking at us, you know, we don't get paid any extra, or he doesn't get paid extra for coming in earlier. But he was an insomniac. He'd come in at 6 o'clock. Hey, he's Pepe the Moco. He would just absolutely be full of pep, and I love him to death. He was a wonderful actor, a wonderful man, and great to work with. The
Yeah.
cast was highly professional. It was a joy and I was happy that I did it, even though it was a small part. And it got one of the best reviews I ever had in the business.
Oh,
I
Yeah.
never had a bad review, by the way, thank God.
Yeah. Elsa Lanchester plays Willard's mother, and I know the two of you did not have any scenes together, but
Yeah,
did you get to meet her?
yeah, we talked. We talked. Of course, she was married to one of my favorites, Joe, with
Charles Lawton.
she was, yeah, she was married to the great actor, Laughlin, and yeah, he and Danny convinced me, and I was so happy that he did because it was another experience and another character that I had in my library. That if something came along in the future or something like that, because I was usually playing powerhouse, a strong character.
Mhm.
So this Brand wasn't that type. He was an office uh, uh, flunky, so to speak, and servant to Borgnine. So it turned out to be a great experience, and really and friendship. Ernie and I got to know each other real well, and later on when I did my radio show years later,
Mhm.
I interviewed him at his home, and we had a wonderful time. And I would see him from time to time. Bruce, I would see once in a while, but I never got to see um, Charles Laughlin's wife, Elsa Lancaster, two of the most talented people in our business. They were such revered and respected. Laughlin did some brilliant work. Hunchback of Notre Dame,
Yep.
so forth. Oh, and see,
The Old Dark House. He was in the original version of that. Of course, Elsa Lanchester, Bride of Frankenstein. That as good a film as you're going to find from Universal. A couple of other actors that you appeared with in the film. I want to talk about Bruce Davison in a moment, but also Sandra Locke, very young Sandra Locke.
Yeah,
She is the love interest to Bruce Davison. Did you get a chance to know her or talk to her a little bit?
Yeah, we talked a little bit, and I did 4 Texans with Rory Calhoun when he was doing the Texan series, and she was in one of the shows, and we got to talk again and reminisced about Willard, and most of them didn't really weren't interested in going backstage and learning about the rats, so to speak. So they were always, a little skinny about it. So,
Yeah.
but we had a few laughs, and she was a good actress, very good actress.
Yeah. Bruce Davison is still with us. He's a prolific actor. He's done a number of horror movies. At the time of Willard, he was very young. I think he was in his early 20s, but he looks like he's about 15. And it's amazing to see, this young kid actor and how he's grown into this wonderful career as a character actor now.
Yeah, oh yeah, he's done some very good work. I think he won an award of a television show. They did a Philadelphia story or something having to do. He played a homosexual in the movie, and he was just
Oh, yeah, the movie Philadelphia, which I think came out in the early 90s. Yeah.
yeah, it's just did a beautiful job. He's a
Do
very,
you
very
still
good.
do you still keep in touch with him?
No, I don't know. We never really socialized together. Mine was the people I associated with were either in their spare time golfers or tennis players or went to the ball game, the Dodger games or Angel games. So my life wasn't in my spare time spent in Hollywood, roaming around, going from one bar to another. I didn't drink. I never had any drugs in all my life. So I lived a different life. I spent 25 years with on and off with Al Campanis, who was a marvelous, beautiful man, the vice president and general manager of player personnel for the Dodgers
Yep.
for many years, and sat in his booth and I had carte blanche. He came to my set, and when I was doing Seven Thieves, he and Tommy Lasorda came to visit me when I was shooting Seven Thieves at 20th Century Fox, and introduced them to one of their favorites, uh, Eddie G. Robinson and Rod Steiger and Joan Collins. So um, I thoroughly enjoyed going to the ball games and playing golf or tennis, and I led a good healthy life. That's why I'm still here, I guess. Maybe
That's right.
again, flying guidance. So far so good, doing okay.
Yeah. I know that Tracy wanted to ask you about your involvement with one of the most iconic sci-fi TV series of all time. Tracy, take us in that direction, because this is fascinating too.
I'm a huge science fiction fan, and I discovered that you did some episodes of Star Trek, which is one of my most favorite besides Stargate. Of course, the original Star Trek, Next Generation, it's another love of mine. Can you maybe talk a little bit about getting your roles in Star Trek and what it was like?
It's very interesting. It was one of the easiest jobs I ever got in my life. I got a phone call in my home from Mr. Roddenberry's office, directly, not through my agent, but directly from his secretary, called my home, because and she apologized. She said, one of our personnel, a friend of yours, here in the office who knows you very well. And he said, "Oh yeah, sure, I know her." And he said, "Yes, she works here in the office, and she had your phone number. And Mr. Roddenberry has an excellent role for you, and he would like to see you ASAP. Could you come in?" This was about 10:30, 11 o'clock in the morning. He said, "Could you come in in the next couple of hours or so?
Mhm.
I said, sure. And I went in. I bypassed no casting, and the secretary brought me right into the office, and he said, Michael, I saw you on a show about a week ago,
Mhm.
and you were excellent. It was just right for this one role. I just saw you in this particular role, and he said, God, Julie Newmar to play opposite Julie Newmar. They needed a small, handsome, intellectual group of people
Mhm.
to tribe
Right.
to play these two leading characters. And he said, it was a Western I saw you in. You were terrific. He said, Michael, all we're doing is a Western in the sky.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. He said, Star Trek is a Western in the sky. Good guy, bad guy. You know who the good guy is, the bad guy is. First act, second act, third act. We have an hour show to do it. And he said, when I saw you, I saw Ma'ab, the character I played in
Hmm.
Frank Child. And I guest starred in the episode with Julie Newmar. She and I both guest starred in the piece. And I said, well, my God, he said, here's the script. Take it home. If you like it, you got the job. He said, call your agent and we'll set everything up. Well, I went home, I read it, called my agent, the agent called them, and it was the easiest job I ever got in my life.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I had never forgot that. But when he told me, it just rang a bell. He said, all we're doing is a Western in the sky. That was the first 3 years of the with Bill Shatner and Leonard Nimoy,
Hmm.
George Takei, and so forth. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
It was a great show to work on. As a matter of fact, um, this is a great experience. We were shooting in a location north of Hollywood,
Mhm.
very famous location where they did pickups of westerns and TV shows called Vasquez Rocks. And I mean, it was loaded with boulders and in a ravine. So it was deep down, and all these boulders surrounded all of the grounds. So, I mean, the day was 117.
Oh.
117. And with my outfit, that, if you remember, Tracy, I was
Hmm.
coming in, the face was closed, everything from my body was one piece down to my boots. And that day, I lost 7 pounds,
Oh,
and
my
I
God.
lost 7 pounds of muscle. I didn't have an ounce of fat on me in those days. Well, now I'm much lighter, but then I was about 185, and I weighed myself that height. I weighed 175. I had lost 10 pounds. It was so hot. There was no air in that,
Mhm.
and we had to shoot all day. And Julie was having a rough time, so they had to put wet towels around her. Joe Pevney, the producer, the director,
Mhm.
had a rough time. He said, Michael, he said, gee, I hope I don't get a heart attack here. They had to put ice packs around his neck and put ice packs on a padded camera. Those days were Mitchell cameras. They didn't have the cameras like they do today. And they had to, on top of the mats, the little mats, they put ice packs to put
Wow.
them on the camera to make it work. And boy, oh boy, it was just, we got through the day, and it was, Julie and I were sitting down in the limousine going back to the studio, the dressing room there, and she said, I hope I never have to do another day like that. And she was drenched. We were both drenched. And every time I walk, you could hear squish, squish. Something. But we had a good show, and uh, every time I make an appearance at a Star Trek venue,
Mm-hmm.
we'll say this is one of my favorite uh, episodes, Friday's Child, because we had comedy, we had drama, and we had action in the picture. So we had a good script. So to get all of that in one hour segment was miraculous, because Joe Pevney was a very good director, and he got everything he needed, and we all everybody did a good job, and we had an awful lot of fun. It was really fun to fantasize and go into another period of our, and again, diversity. He gave me another character that I never played before, which is something that I wanted to do, continuously do different characters.
Oh my gosh. What a career. Oh my gosh. Just so varied with the different roles that you've had. And I love that story. Thank you so much for sharing that with us.
Are you a Trekkie fan, Tracy?
Yes. Very much so.
And by the way, Trekkies at all the venues, they are the most polite. I'll give you an example. The first venue I did was Pasadena Auditorium in Pasadena, and they had it with Bill and Leonard Nimoy, literally from the stage all the way out the door to the street, line and two and three in a line. And by the time they got to us, we were in back of Bill and Leonard, our tables with all of our pictures and DVDs and so forth. And lo and behold, the Trekkies that came to our table, I said, "Gosh, how long have you been waiting in line to get to my table?" They said, 3 hours. I said, 3 hours? Really? Are you disappointed? And was you were upset? He said, "Oh no." She said, he said, and he said, "Oh, it happened to be English." He said, "Oh no." He said, "Oh no, we love coming here. We live in Manchester, and he said we come here every year, and we love doing it." And I said, "Well, do you have relatives here, and you make it a visit and come to the venue?"
Mm-hmm.
"Oh no, we save up all year, all our money to come here to the shows."
Wow.
Oh my
Yeah.
God, it's amazing. And
Yeah.
the 3 hours of standing in line, she said, "Well, we have also nice folks that we meet here, and we talk and we get to know each other, and then year after year we meet them again and we have a great time again. We love coming to you."
That is
Most
phenomenal.
loyal, polite, patient fans in the whole world. Incredible.
Oh my gosh. And that's what's good about sci-fi fans.
Oh,
Why
man.
friendly.
I have another great story, if you don't mind,
No, go
about
for it.
the Star Trek. They're so loyal. They all have portfolios like this. Now, the pictures, they're varied in those days. The 8 by 10s and autograph, or buying an autograph, it was minimum was $25 to $100 for Shatner and Leonard Nimoy, and so forth. It varied. Well, my niece had a birthday, and I called her to wish her a happy birthday. And I said, "Well, I'm coming down the weekend, and I want to take you wherever you want to go. I want to take you within reason. Okay, Kristen?" It said, "Oh, okay, Uncle Mike. You know what? We want to go to the San Diego Zoo. I want to go to the zoo. Can we go to the zoo?" I said, "Yeah, sure." And I tell Mom, my brother, and his wife, my brother's a daughter and son. I tell John, John, and you, I'll take the both of you. I asked my brother and sister-in-law, is it okay if I take the two kids? He said, sure, take them. So they live in Newport Beach. And I went down, spent the weekend, and that Sunday, I took them to the San Diego Zoo.
Mhm.
And if you've ever been to the San Diego Zoo, they have these giant cages with thousands of little birds, different breeds of birds, in two of them. And I am looking there, and I have my niece and nephew by the hand. They were just 7 or 8 years old at the time. And look at that pretty one, that one, and so forth. And I look over my shoulder, and there's three women, I'd say about 15, 20 yards away.
Mhm.
They're pointing at us. And I look at it, I don't know them, and they keep pointing like this. And I looking around, and I thought maybe they're pointing at somebody else nearby. So we go to the next cage, and there's a big cage and so forth, looking at the bird. And I look over my shoulder, and they're about 10 yards away. And they're pointing at me. And he said, Mom! So what? They came over, the three people. These were Trekkies.
Oh gosh.
They were Trekkies. And they had their portfolios with them. Can you imagine that? They had their portfolios with them and so forth, with hundreds of pictures in them. So I said, "Oh, Mr. Dante, would you please sign, your autograph? I have your picture, but sign it again. Would you sign it for me?" and so forth. And the three of them, I said, "Why do you bring your portfolios here to the zoo?" They said, "Oh, you never know when you run into someone who has played or has done a Star Trek."
Wow.
Well, it far out, but it worked. So that was a reality that happened to me that flabbergasted me and so forth. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, that's great. Michael, one other actor I wanted to ask you about, and it turned out very important in your life, and a guy that you had a connection with also, in that he was also a ball player turned actor, Chuck Connors. And when he became an actor, one of the things he specialized in the 1970s were sci-fi and horror films. He was in Soylent Green. He was in a really underrated movie called Tourist Trap. But he has a personal connection to you. Tell us about that.
Yeah. Mary Jane and her mother were invited to the sportsman luncheon that they had opposite Warner Brothers at the country club, and they met once a month. And her father was one of the creators of that organization, where there were sports writers, sports announcers, and sports personalities. And the theme for that month was actors or athletes, professional athletes that made the transition to sports. Okay, her father, Mark Scott, was the announcer for the Hollywood Stars baseball team,
Right.
and he and Tommy Harmon created this group and brought all these talented people together, and to keep on top of what was going on in the sports world in Los Angeles, with whom and so forth and so on. All the inside info, and they have a special guest. In this case, they had Esther Williams, John Bernardino, of course, Chuck Connors, Chuck Kasijian, and myself, the five of us. And it was all, we had to be called, when we were called to the podium, talk about our transition, how that took place, where, when, and how, and so forth. But uh, Mary Jane and her mother were very good friends with Chuck Connors. And Mark Scott and Chuck were very close. And Mark was very instrumental in getting Chuck started in the business. Because he would do Casey at the Bat. He did a very good Casey at the Bat. And he did it at the Hollywood ballpark. And Mark Scott introduced him. He gave him the opportunity to do it live on camera. And then, of course, the producers saw him that he had potential as an actor. But Mark Scott was very instrumental in giving him his first opportunity on camera. So now, when I walked into the dining room, Goldie was the host of the program, and Goldie said, "Oh, Michael, I'm so happy you came because I had called a week before. I said I might have to do something." He said, "Oh, don't let me down. Please come," and so forth. Well, anyway, when he came in, he hugged me and so forth and so on. And at the first table on my right, when I walked in, was Chuck Connors holding court with three others at his table. We all had a table, and at each table there were three guests, and the star would be a host of the tables. So when I walked in, I said, "Hey, Michael," and Chuck was very boisterous. He had really he could be off the wall sometimes. And he said, "Michael, come over here. I haven't seen you in a while. How you been, pal?" And so forth and so on. And we're talking baseball. He said, "You and I, we have to talk baseball," and so forth. Anyway, shortly thereafter, Goldie rang the bell. That meant everybody to go on to the respective tables, and the program would start. And Chuck said, I said, "Oh, well, we'll talk later." So, "What do you mean later?" He said, "No, you're going to sit here." I can't. I said, "Goldie, will you tell this guy I got to go to my table?" He said, "Goldie, he sits here." Well, Goldie said, all right, okay, go ahead. Well, Michael, sit there and so forth. So I apologized later to the sports writers and announcers of two sports writers and one of the announcers. And anyway, we were called to the podium to tell our story about the transition and so forth. Well, on our way out, Chuck was holding court, and I was standing there, and Mary Jane and her mother came to the table, and Mary Jane's mom said, "Chuck, I don't know if you remember me, but I'm Mike Scott's wife, and Dorothy, and this is my daughter, Mary Jane." And he said, "Oh my God, oh, she was." So Mary Jane had a pencil and a pad. She said, "Chuck, do you mind if we maybe tell me more about my father and we'll exchange numbers and so forth?" And then turned around and he was gone. Chuck was spacing. So he was gone. So I was standing there and I said, "Are you married?" She said, "No. Are you?" I said, "Well, uh, I have your phone number. Would you like to go to lunch one day and so forth?" Well, first of all, he introduced me before he left. He said, "This is Michael Dante and Mary Jane Scott and Chuck." And then we looked at each other, and then he was gone. And then we exchanged, Mary Jane and I exchanged numbers. We went to dinner a night. She was going to England with her relatives, her cousin. And well, I'm going to. I said, "You have to eat." So, because she was leaving in 2 days. So the night before we had dinner, and I said, "Well, I'll call you when we got back. when you get back. I called her when you get back, and she became my wife. We called, and we got married, and we were married over 30 years to this day.
Wow.
And the condoms is responsible
Yeah.
for introducing it.
That is so sweet.
Big assist to Chuck Connors on that one. Very helpful. Nice, nice. Michael, before we let you go, one last question. You're still very active to this day. You mentioned all the books that you've been writing. You still make public appearances. Tell us what's next for you on your busy schedule.
Well, I have two things. One is on my radio show, which you can go on my website. First of all, the audience is Mark, Bruce, and Tracy. MichaelDanteWay.com. All one word, MichaelDanteWay.com. And you can take that little mouse and you see the gallery and all of my credits, all my awards, and my radio show. I have over 200 radio shows, which I did in 12 years. And now we're working and getting them to go on YouTube.
Oh,
And
nice.
you can go on and hear those radio shows. I have a 3-minute show and an hour show. And you could see all the stars that I've introduced and interviewed, about 40 plus Hall of Famers from the sports world, and actors and actresses and entertainers, all the greats, from Milton Berle, Tony Curtis, Buddy Hackett, Jerry Vale, my God, Tommy Lasorda, Yogi Berra, Ralph Kiner. It just goes on and on with all the greats of all time. Virginia Mayo, Rod Steiger. I mean, it's just a wonderful journey for those. And you can hear it. It's free. It's all free. So Team Dante Talk Shows, plural, TeamDanteTalkshows.com, and you could have the privilege of hearing these great interviews. And one with Dick Butkus, who just passed away, the Hall of Famer for the Chicago Bears, and the like of great athletes like that, Rod Laver. I mean, it just goes on. John Havlicek. It goes on and on and on and on. And all the Bruce, the Hall of Famers, and you would appreciate that are in the Hall of Fame that I interviewed, or baseball, are just incredible.
All right, so that's TeamDanteTalkshows.com. Is that correct?
TeamDanteRadioshows.com.
Okay,
That's
TeamDanteRadioshows.com. Again, TeamDanteRadioshows.com for the complete archive.
And my website is MichaelDanteWay.com, and you can see all of the work that I've done over the 60 plus years that I've been in the business.
Oh, nice. And we'll make sure that we have all of the links to your sites at the bottom of the podcast and the video as well. Absolutely.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Michael, we thank you very much. It's been a real pleasure and privilege to talk to you over this last hour plus. Our thanks also to your wife, Mary Jane, for helping to arrange this. Michael Dante, award-winning actor, award-winning author, more than 30 credits in television and more than 150 in film, and someone who has done his share of horror over the years as well. Michael, thank you. We really appreciate it.
Well, thank you. Pleasure. And Tracy, it really was a pleasure. And I'm so happy you're a Trekkie.
And a Trekkie and a Gator. Thank you so much, Michael. This has been fascinating today.
Thank you. Thank you.
Again, our guest, Michael Dante, we thank him. We thank our co-host and producer, Tracy Asteria. Want to thank all of you for joining us in this Museum of the Macabre. And we hope you'll join us next time right here in the Ghostly Gallery.